Welcome to Elizabeth's Chronicles. If you love true crime, consider subscribing. Ronnie O'Neill III grew up not knowing who his father was until he was an adult. He grew up in a stable home, and sang in the church choir throughout his childhood. He played football at East Bay High School, and was in the Reserve Officer Training Corps. O'Neill attempted to join the U.S. Marine Corps, but eventually gave up after failing the entrance exam numerous times. In his adult life, he gravitated to the Nation of Islam, and joined a group called Build Your Community, which is against guns and violence in the inner cities. He was a resident of Riverview, Florida. He met Kenyatta Kiki Barron, and the two started seeing each other. In 2009 she gave birth to their daughter Ronivea O'Neill, who was born with cerebral palsy and non-verbal. In 2010, Kiki gave birth to their son, Ronnie O'Neill IV. Over the course of their relationship, Kiki called 911 numerous times over domestic disturbances. After the couple broke up, on May 25 in 2015, O'Neill showed up, and demanded to use the car he claimed he pays for, and when she would not let him use it, he threw a car jack at the windshield, and said if he couldn't use it nobody could. The deputy called the alleged crime misdemeanor criminal mischief. Kiki accepted the request for prosecution form from the deputy, but she never followed through. After their separation, Kiki had gone back to school, and was enrolled at Hillsborough Community College. Even though school made her life hectic, she always found the time to play football with her 8-year-old son, in the front yard. In October of 2017, Ronnie O'Neill was wounded in a random drive-by shooting in Tampa, Florida. He was in critical condition, and underwent surgery, but survived. He was trying to find someone to stay with temporarily, but nobody would allow him to stay because of his erratic behavior lately. He turned to Kiki for a place to stay, and despite her mother's advice, she decided to allow him to stay there. On March 18, in 2018, the couple were discussing religion and began arguing. At 11:43 p.m., the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call from an unidentified woman, now known as Kenyatta Kiki Barron. The female said, "I'm sorry, Ronnie," as she screamed. The male caller said, "She killed me," and was screaming Allah Akbar in the background. The call ended abruptly. 8 minutes later, another emergency call came in, from a male saying he was attacked by white demons, and accusing Kiki of trying to kill him, and that he just killed her. He gave them his home address. Law enforcement was dispatched to the residence. Upon arrival, they found Kenyatta Barron face down on the sidewalk, near the house. The Hillsborough Fire Rescue arrived moments later, and determined she was already dead. A few minutes later, police noticed a light coming from one side of the house. The light grew. It was discovered that it was a fire inside the home. Law enforcement decided to make entry into the house. Once inside, they found the main living area fully engulfed in flames. Police began yelling for anyone inside to come out to safety. This is when a child, 8-year-old, Ronnie O'Neill IV, came outside. He was covered in blood, had stab injuries, and severe burns. He was immediately given medical attention, and taken to the hospital for emergency treatment. A little bit later, Ronnie O'Neill III stepped out. He was placed under arrest. After putting out the blaze, authorities found 9-year-old Ronivea in the home with extensive injuries, as well as burned. She was already deceased. A hatchet was used on her neck, head, and back. She was also stabbed and slashed multiple times with a large knife. She was unrecognizable. Autopsy by Dr. M. Mainland, with the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner's Office on Kenyatta Barron, found that she had blunt impact trauma to the head, and shotgun wounds to the torso and extremities. She also had stab wounds. Her manner of death was listed as homicide. The autopsy on Ronnie Vare O'Neill, her daughter, found that she received chops, cuts, and penetrating wounds. Her manner of death was also listed as a homicide. Ronnie O'Neill IV survived his father's attempts to murder him. He sustained multiple stab wounds to his neck, abdomen, chest, and extremities. He also suffered extensive burns to over 30% of his body. Ronnie O'Neill III lost his parental rights in December of 2018. Ronnie IV was placed under protective supervision, and was given extensive medical, mental and other support services. While Ronnie O'Neill IV was recovering in the hospital, Detective Blair visited him. Even though he wasn't the one investigating the murders, he felt compelled to visit him in the hospital. He brought the young boy some things from Tampa Bay Buccaneers, through his connections with the team. As he was about to leave, Ronnie asked the detective if he could stay and watch a movie with him. The detective said this touched his heart. He said he was supposed to be going on a date night with his wife, so he called her, and asked her instead of going on a date night, if she could come to the hospital and watch a movie with the boy. The two ditched their date night and watched a movie with Ronnie. Later they adopted Ronnie, and he became a part of their family. Ronnie O'Neill III was charged with 2 counts of murder. 3 years later, on June 21, 2021, the double murder trial began. Judge Michelle Sisko presided over the case. O'Neill opted to act as his own attorney in the trial.
The evidence is going to show that we are under some of the most vicious fabricating fictitious government you've ever seen. By the time it's all said and done, you will see who is the mass murderers. In Tampa Bay, the state of Florida. You will know why what occurred on March 18, 2018 occurred. And the evidence is going to show that law enforcement tampered with evidence to meet their such high burden of proof. Because originally, it wasn't enough. So we had to tamper with evidence. Since it was such evident already, but we still had to tamper with evidence. The evidence is going to show my son did not see me murder his mom. The evidence is going to show he did not see me shoot his mom. The evidence is going to show my son said many things that are not true. The evidence is going to show that I called 911 during Kenyatta Barron's 911 call. But all of a sudden, it ended after Kenyatta Barron's call was made, now I'm calling 911. But originally, I called 911 without even knowing she called 911 during her call. But the evidence is going to show that your representatives and law enforcement, local law enforcement, wanted to make it seem like I'm some kind of menace to society, and I ran after killing Kenyatta Barron knowing that authority was on the way to kill my own children. I wonder why I would do something like that for no reason. And I'm standing here competent as can be, representing myself today. The evidence is going to show my son did not witness me viciously beat his mom to death. The evidence is going to show my neighbor, Khalil Brown, whom they are trying to keep out of this trial, witnessed me take 3 strikes. The evidence is going to show that law enforcement and this administration wanted to make me look like a menace to society. So they added several mini strikes on that video and audio that you just heard. And they added several statements that I did not say. Anything that I may have said, they exacerbated it and made me say it consecutively over and over like Allahu Akbar, which I may have said once or twice. But they wanted to make me seem like a terrorist. And so you hear it 8 or 9 times, and you hear me calling Kenyatta Barron a bitch and a whore. The evidence is going to show that I called my dad after calling 911. But that call is all of a sudden missing from the T-Mobile records that we have acquired from T-Mobile. The 911 call that I made to 911 and the 911 call that you just heard cannot be proven that it was made, because after I called for an investigation of those 911 calls, all of a sudden they become missing from all evidence. The evidence is going to show Kenyatta Barron supposedly made a 911 call, but you cannot find that on her call log, which we pulled from her actual phone. They say she made a call at 11:43. There's no 911 call at 11:43 on her call log.
During the trial, Ronnie O'Neill IV had to be subjected to his father's questioning.
State, you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just saw my dad holding a shotgun and my mom screaming at him.
And your father had a shotgun. What happened next? What did he do?
My mom ran in my sister's room. My mom ran in my sister's room and turned into the closet. And then my dad said, "Come here and come kill the B-word."
Did you hear any shots from the shotgun before that?
Yes.
How many times?
One.
Was there a time when your mother was able to get out of the closet?
She was like stumbling outside, and then I just saw my dad chase her.
What do you remember happening next?
My dad told me to walk around and say like some words.
And do you remember what words your father told you to say?
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar?
Yes.
Did he do something to your sister?
Yes, he hit her with an axe. And then he went in the garage, I followed him. He put me on the ground, and then he had his foot on top. I was laying on my stomach, he had his foot on top of me, and he was holding me down. And he was lighting a match.
Mr. O'Neill, any questions?
How you doing, Ronnie?
Good.
It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Did you see me shoot your mom?
No.
Did I hurt you that night of this incident?
Yes.
I did. And how did I hurt you?
He stabbed me.
Family members gave victim impact statements.
So when you sit in that cell for the rest of your life, remember, you don't leave out until you're in a box. So when you sit in that cell every day, 24 hours a day, that scream, I want you to hear it. When she comes to you in your dreams, I want you to receive it. You know why? Because that was a child of God.
Ronnie O'Neill III addressed the court before sentencing.
Sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
On July 21st of 2021, Ronnie O'Neill III was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole plus 90 years, to run consecutively. And this is what she told the defendant.
Moment, that first time you struck her with that hatchet, and little Ronnie testified that all he could see was tears coming out of his sister's face. At that moment, that child knew. She knew she was being betrayed in the cruelest, most tragic and sorrowful way that a child could ever be betrayed. She was being betrayed by her parent, the one person that should be there to protect their children and love them and keep them from harm.
Judge Michelle Cisco went on to say how this is the worst case she's ever seen in her long career as a judge. Ronnie O'Neill will spend the rest of his life in prison. Ronnie O'Neill III is an evil, deranged man. In a fit of rage, he brutally murdered his ex-girlfriend, and his autistic daughter. He attempted to murder his son, but for the grace of God he survived. Anyone who can butcher a little girl so defenseless as his little girl was, should be wiped off the face of this earth. However, justice was served, he was found guilty and will spend the rest of his pathetic life behind bars, locked up like the vicious animal he is. That concludes this episode. Keep your eye out for the next episode, coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.